Hey everyone. Well, good morning. For those of you who are in different time zones, good afternoon. My name is Patrick Corelli. I'm going to be covering AI without the headaches today. Really great to be back. We had been on hiatus for the month of July, just knowing that a lot of people weren't available. Let me just let some folks who are showing up. Wouldn't be available in July, so we started up this series again, and we'll continue that through the fall and in the spring and continue to try to bring these webinars out to you to improve education and understanding of various technology tools. I will have to say, I was looking back at the work I've been doing in AI and in training for the last 3 years, and interesting how much of my content time has been driven by request about AI versus other topics. It's not surprising. It's just the momentum in the last 9 months has completely shifted where whether it's in webinars like this or if it's directly with a customer, talking with a customer and their staff, we're seeing just just big uplift in people wanting to meet with me or do internal trainings on how to use AI. And so today we're going to talk about looking at that. We're going to really start from the different approaches on AI, in the context of how do we use the AI effectively in our everyday work. We'll go into specific details, and we're going to look at a couple of products. This is outside of the general generative AI tools. We're going to take a look at a couple of products out there that I've done some research on, evaluation on. In no way am I promoting those products. It's more of a use case to say, okay, these products exist, they intersect with the work we're doing. Everything isn't necessarily built around generative AI. And then hopefully by the end of this, you're going to come away with some more exposure to the tools and why specific tools end up being more helpful in a certain process. We'll look at a different way to deal with the process, like how do you approach even doing this within your organization, not just for yourself. I'll drop, of course, some tidbits around metrics. We'll look at that as we're going through our first slide deck. And then we'll also talk about the impact that you have, like, because this is much more than this is a session that's much more than just using the tools. It really is going in and looking at what does this mean for the organization. And I think in a lot of the social impact organizations that we work with, my work in the last 3 years, I've just been incredibly excited about what this technology means for our organizations. Most of us who have always been very, you're always very not just budget conscious, but strapped for time and capacity. And this is a transformative technology that can be brought into your organization immediately, and probably is already happening. But we'll look at how to take this culturally system-wide. So a lot to cover today. Again, I'm excited to be back. It's going to be a great fall. Lots of great things happening content-wise, and I can't wait to share all of that with you. So what we're going to do is just something that came up. I did a presentation several months ago, and just recently I did a training, and I got a request from one of those people in the training, and this has happened multiple times. There are usually one or two people that want to know, hey, Patrick, you did this training, but I'm really concerned about, the impact to society and the environment. Do you ever talk about that? And the answer is yes, I do. Actually, I do a lot of reading on this topic. And we're going to take a look at that just briefly here. And I say this because this would be an area, just given my, my own beliefs and what I prioritize in terms of what we do in technology and how it contributes to social good. This is something you want to be articulate about, that we're not just like adopting some new technology with, it doesn't matter what it is and what it does to society, like this thing's going to help us. That's certainly not my intent here. And I've always thought, we have like 25 years of experience working in a socially responsible way. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit here. They come in AI, they come to three key areas that you hear the most about. And these are, very complex topics. There's a lot of philosophical topics about this in addition to the technology. And they've existed for decades now. These aren't new ideas. They're just coming to surface to us lay people in mass media. But one is around power consumption, the environmental impacts, the economic impacts of power consumptions of these AI data centers. They are consuming and will consume as much as 3 times the amount of power that traditional data centers. We do not actually globally, there is not enough power in the world to drive the forecasted AI demand and conversion of data centers over to AI type of infrastructure. So, and again, if you're like, wait, what's so special about AI? Just remember, this is all about the chips and how the actual chips, the hardware, and how much power they consume in order to do the type of processing that they do. So this is much different than what you would have in a computer on a laptop or a server traditionally. These are much more powerful, power hungry chips. And that's just, as things get more intelligent, as they are able to compute faster, they need power to do that. So that's where you're seeing this power consumption. So we're going to talk about power. There's also the question of ethics of like, is AI being used in an ethical way? Should it be used to do X? I heard a startup, I read an article actually, a startup saying, our goal is to eliminate all jobs. Like, and there's an example of like, well, that makes a lot of headlines, but is that actually ethical? Is there a way to exist in society and community where there is no work done by humans? And I think, that at the most philosophical, extreme level in terms of ethics, and we talk about that, is thinking about where's the role and what should AI do for us? And I think that's an ongoing conversation that's well beyond any of my webinars. But it is something I read about and thinking about what's the role of this product, of this technology in our society. And of course, when it comes to people, there's lots of things to be said here, but the natural one is AI will eliminate jobs. And I don't spend much time in that area because right now, um, I think what we need in our organizations is tools that help us get to the outcomes we're trying to reach that, save us time. And so, how do we get to those high productivity numbers with the current staff we have? How do we increase the quality? How do we innovate? And in order to do some of the forward thinking works, anticipating needs, we need to save some time. We need to free up our calendars to make it possible to even contemplate how we can improve the world or how we can deliver our services, how we can deliver, if we're a business, how we can deliver our product or services downstream to customers. So the people piece is an important part. So these things aren't lost to me. And I think today we're going to talk about, this is really about the people when we look at these tools and how do we help people to find the greatest success in the roles and how they contribute best to their companies. On the power front, just to speak on that one, because I do get a lot of questions about the environmental impact. What you're seeing are two things happening in the industry, and these have been out there for a long time, but they've been accelerated by power consumption needs in two things. A, the power consumption needs that data centers need for AI, so they're just dramatically higher. And there's not enough power on the grid so that you just can't turn a data center on that does AI and just plug it into the grid and expect that power provider, utility provider to be able to do it. It's not possible. It literally doesn't exist. And of course, if you did do that and allowed AI data centers to do that, what you're seeing is in those cases where it does happen that way, you're seeing the demand drive up costs for all consumers, not just the data center provider, right? Just it's demand-based power pricing. That's how the world works now. And so that's not feasible because there's just not enough power. So you have companies like Microsoft, the big ones, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and Google. They're doing Microsoft being pretty aggressive and bullish on taking old shut down nuclear power plants and turning them back on and using power from those nuclear power plants to drive the data center AI. So that's, of course, in conjunction with federal government. But this image here is actually 3 Mile Island, which is under contract, or they're looking to get approved for contract with Microsoft to fund a data center that's not far from this location in Pennsylvania. That's on the reuse side of things. On the new side, you see what's called SMRs. And SMRs are interesting. These are small modular reactors. This is a newer technology. These are tiny, very inexpensive relative to a big facility like a traditional nuclear power plant. And you can put these adjacent to these data centers. And so you're seeing a lot of investment globally. You're seeing a lot of investment in this SMR technology. And this, by the way, isn't unique to the US. The investment coming out of the Middle East in these areas, Saudi Arabia, UAE, in terms of funding AI data centers in region, in Europe. I think the EU just approved like a $60 billion investment in AI data centers. And that's obviously going to be a lot of infrastructure, and of course, what is already happening in North America and in the US. So That's going to be one of their plans for these large tech companies that these massive data centers have massive footprints. That's their plan. Is that this requires hundreds of billions of dollars investment. It is what everything will be run on in the future, because you don't want to maintain two different technologies long term, right? So there's going to be this transition that's going to occur, and the intelligence that they bring into the architecture design to maximize that to keep that carbon footprint down. So it's a little bit of background on that. Let's move on. Let's talk about how to integrate AI. Now, again, before we get into tools, we want to have context. So you might be someone like, hey, I use AI now. I do it all the time. It's great. I want other people to use it. You might be saying, I know we should use this, but we've not really made a decision or policy. So we're really telling people to please not use it in our organization. Or maybe you're just somewhere like, I just don't even know where to begin with this. So this is where do we start when we think about how we're going to do this in our organization? So when, again, beyond the individual, but you could do it for yourself as well. That's where I started. I was doing, and this has just been how I've done it across my career. I do a lot of self experimentation, Dr. Frankenstein of sorts, I guess, where I will say, hey, there's this new technology. This is really interesting. I'm going to go use it. So I've been using AI in a couple different forms for quite some time. And not just the generative AI like you see in ChatGPT, but actually other AI and even pre-AI type of things that we used to call, that are called machine learning and so forth. So this goes back, really far, but most of it has been in the 3 years, a lot of research, reading, testing, and what have you. So one of the things I found was a great place to start is to look at in a really important process in your organization that you feel could be better and that has certain tasks in that core process that are highly manual, very task oriented. So that's one of the places where you want to consider beginning. Now, just because it's an important process doesn't mean that's where you should start. You want to look at the specific issues and say, could AI be used to solve some of the specific subtasks of this core process? Now you might say, well, that sounds, like core processes are pretty important. Why would you start there? Well, here's why. Here's why I'm recommending this. One is usually a core process that's essential to your organization is something that usually someone knows how to do really well, right? Like there's a lot of eyes on it. It really impacts you. You understand it well. There's probably process maturity there of some sort. Maybe not, but usually there is. There's a good understanding of how this works because it's essential. So if you're a nonprofit doing social services, and you have to submit billing back to the county in order to get reimbursed, I bet your billing process is pretty well understood to make sure you guys get paid and you can pay your employees. Like that's just usually how I would think of it. Now, when I look at that core process and we talk about the individual tasks involved, like what are the steps, if you will, of the process and what has to be done in those steps, that's where you want to find a particular task and then apply AI to it. You don't want to, I've seen this mistakes. I've had people come to me, oh, I was attending your webinar. So we're working on this entire process to automate the whole thing. And I was like, whoa, that's not what I said. Like I feel like I've made a huge error here. That's not what I wanted to communicate. What I want you to do is see that whole process and go to that subtask and saying that one looks really easy to automate or really easy to inject to AI. That's what we're talking about doing here, because you're going to take one task and apply AI to it. And this is a very agile way to test something out without changing it. You can actually see some results and some benefit. And I use this, for example, when I deal with meetings. And that's a really important one that I've seen where things have gotten more effective, where we just saw the amount of time it took to get notes back to people went from like, sometimes they wouldn't get the notes after a meeting because this is a particular requirement for our client success managers. They wouldn't get the notes. So the notes now, instead of being 4, 5, 7 days long until notes came out, you would see the notes able to come out within 24 hours, right? The other part that you can see in here is also in addition to the notes is the quality of the notes and the action items. And so what we saw with our client success managers is we saw huge variability, and this is over years, huge variability in, well, this person doesn't take good notes, so it's always kind of confusing to read it, or this person takes good notes, but the action items are buried and they don't get tracked well. So that leads to other client success issues, customer experience issues. we saw the quality of the notes go up dramatically. And so when the quality goes up in something, it's much easier to have accountability on that. And so there was like we just wanted to improve notes after a meeting. And we thought that transcription and note taking could make a big difference. So, and again, that's just part of our customer experience that we want to achieve, which is everyone is aligned and we have clarity on it. So, this is where that task and working on something really small becomes important. And you'll see here this last one, number 4, which is you want to pilot something. Just because you tried it in one task and it didn't work, move on, try something else. Maybe that task is just too important. It's too complicated. People don't have time. Go take it into a different part of the organization. See, can we pilot this somewhere else and see some measurable improvement, measurable results that we didn't have before. So that's what we want to see on that. We want to review it. We want to talk about it in dialogue. So this is one of the big things that I think is a missed opportunity, which is an open dialogue about staff, where AI is an assistive technology. It can really help us, but we want to be talking about what we're discovering and working on together to improve. So again, you review it, you improve, you go further and saying, can we enhance this further? Can we expand it into other tasks in the process where it'd be helpful? And you just can, this is the flywheel. Number 4 is what we call the flywheel. This is the flywheel. Start small, try another one, try another one. And I don't think this is a question of will it work for you or not. It's a question of, can we pick the right spots and start to see some improvement that keeps that flywheel moving around, where we continually go back and improve, identify, improve. That's where you're going to find your greatest success, is really getting your organization to adopt this, because this AI part of us as organizations, it's so important for social impact organizations. It is transformative. I've seen it in our own organization. And we're at the tip, like what we're going to experience over the next 18 months in terms of what we are investing in the internal use of AI will eclipse anything we've done probably in the last 10 years. So in 18 months, we will eclipse the totality of all improvements we've made in the last 10 years. And that's just think about that. That means buying a new tools, all those things. So you really want to start here, because it's going to make or break the organizations where others are able to operate with better data. They're going to operate with more intelligence as they do this. So they're going to make better decisions. They're going to make those decisions faster, and they're going to have more of that knowledge and alignment across their organization. And I say that not as, theorizing. I'm saying that's exactly what we've done inside our organization. I see it in other organizations where I've gone and applied this model with them. And the issue is not, is this a good model? The issue is getting people to adopt and begin to do some of this piloting and testing. And just to keep you up to date, so we're going to spend about another 12 to 15 minutes talking about some of these examples and some other information. And then we're going to review a couple of apps out there, not looking at Copilot or ChatGPT. We're going to look at some other apps and talk about what these apps exist and some examples of how they work. So let's look at some of our examples here. So this is about using AI tools. This could be ChatGPT or Copilot. This could be what most products have right now are generative AI embedded into their AI tool. It's really just generative AI. It's the same similar technology, but focused on their product. So when people explore AI, and I still see people who are like, oh yes, I use ChatGPT, they still write fairly simplistic lines like the ones you see here. Something that's almost akin to or similar to what you would ask in a search engine. Like, I'll just ask for something very simple, light, because if I ask too much data, the search engines would get confused. So I just need to say, I need, I want to know my favorite sports team, how they're doing, right? Or what is the status of such and such? And that's actually the opposite of what AI is. So in tech speak, we call these prompts. I call these descriptors. And some of you, if you've attended my webinars before, you've heard me talk about this when I refer to AI. Descriptors are just trying to be a mental indication for you to understand, or the user to understand, more description is much more powerful to AI than less. So you want to be as specific, as detailed as you can. And let's look at an example of what some of those look like. So in this one example, we're going to talk about continuous learning. Now, I'm a huge advocate for continuous learning. What I've struggled with most of my career is figuring out how to get people knowledge when they need it. Because when we talk about, for decades, I think I talked about training. Oh, we got to train, we got to train. But that training in tech is a problem because by the time you know you need to train people, the tech is going to change again. And let's call it every 6 months. And so you're going to train them, but the things you train them on, like how to do things, they actually don't look like that anymore. We saw this like with Microsoft's cloud technology, since we do a lot of work in Microsoft. Something would change. You're like, oh, where's that feature gone? Like how it's not, the actual button that I'm supposed to click or the link I'm supposed to click is not there. And it turns out it moved, right? Or it's in a different, they split it up and it's a different product. So it becomes very challenging to stay on top of traditional live training. And the same thing with self-paced training. What we found historically is self-paced training was, it didn't matter who we bought it from, nothing was current enough. Like it wasn't A in our context, which is a real problem for adult learners. Like, well, this isn't exactly what we use or how we use it in our company. But it also, like, the information would just be old. It'd be outdated. Like it doesn't actually look like that anymore. It doesn't quite work that way anymore. Or that product doesn't even exist, but we paid for training for it. So continuous learning is a really important aspect for adult learners to say, how can we use the technology to get the information, the knowledge to that person when they need it, not because the organization said, oh, now we got to train people. So here are a couple of prompts. And now these prompts that I've got for you here are, the first one is very specific. Now this is about operations. This is right, like management administration type of theories and methodologies. There's this concept that called frameworks. Now, some of you, if you've gone to college or whatever, and you have a very specific discipline, you were taught frameworks in whatever discipline that you're in. And so frameworks, I find that, and there are a lot of disciplines where there aren't the existence of frameworks. They exist, but they're not taught. So when I'm working with staff and I'm coaching them, I will take a topic that they're supposed to have some understanding of, and I will help them understand that, like, it's not just about understanding how to do it, but here are the frameworks that exist out there. There isn't one way to do everything. So I will have them start researching frameworks for, in this example, business processes, that there are actually frameworks that work. And some of them are highly complex and have a place in maybe like a big enterprise or in government. And then some of them are been simplified and they apply maybe better in a smaller organization. And this is where I'm teaching my staff, the folks I'm coaching, I'm teaching them to have a starting place to create context about a new topic they don't know about. So just be careful that don't get caught in the trap. And I've seen this with certain folks with various experience levels, where they get caught in the trap of like, well, I'll just use it to help me do something, but they don't really know why. They're not actually thinking. There's a great comedian who talked about this in one of his very long YouTube videos. And but what he was trying to say is like, hey, if AI is making us dumber, and I think that if used incorrectly, yes, you can use it in a way that doesn't actually make you think. And we don't want that. The individual doesn't want that. We don't want that. And so this is a way to go into it saying you can learn anything you want. AI can help you learn it. And it's going to learn it and allow you to ask your questions or help you along to understand more, even if you didn't know where to begin. So I start there. And then I present, in my next comment, I will actually present what my problem is, like what is it I'm trying to do, and then which of these frameworks would apply. And what we're doing again is we're creating this structure. It says now that I have a framework, now I have to fill in the pieces of that framework. So in my context for what I do in my career, how would I use this? So learning how to do this for yourself, but also mentoring people in your organization that they can be the kind of the holders of their learning process, that they actually have access to an incredible tool to help fill in gaps in their knowledge and understanding. This becomes an important part of you do. Now the thing that you're going to probably say to yourself is, this is great. I want everyone to learn. That's very like, that's a great endeavor. But how do we get the time? And so one of the things I can tell you is in the next one example I'm going to give you, this one is one of the examples where you start to first find a lot of time. So I would tell you, I read a research study that said in using AI agents like chatbots effectively, this was an MIT study that was in the last 6 months, It's one of like 6 studies I've read talking about how much productivity increased. And I translate productivity increase meaning freeing up your time. Productivity increases around 40%. Now, it's so interesting to me that that was the findings very recently, because that's exactly the number that I experienced 2 years ago when I first implemented AI and figured out how to use it to improve my productivity. So that's the first thing that happened. But then there was a second part, which is harder to quantify, which is around quality of work. So, in order to get your productivity up so that you can actually work on the continuous learning, you can have this time now to sit with someone and coach them, you've got to open up space on the calendar. And that's where the productivity and creation comes up, which is how do we use those tools like the note taking tool to free up the time. I do not want staff sitting there spending 2 and 3 hours, cleaning up and formatting their notes. Like that's not a good use of their time. So let's use technology to help us do that because that's all they're doing, right? The other thing was the quality level. Not only did we get the notes out faster, they were incredibly accurate. Like just things weren't getting missed. And so you see this in terms of people's anxieties in work going down, where they have more available time to work, to do higher quality work. And where AI is injected, we actually reduce error rates, oversights, misses, what have you, because the AI isn't missing any of those things. So this is a really, really good way to think about how you're going to get to continuous learning, increase the productivity, free up the time, so that 40% time gain. I have another one that I'm researching I find hard to believe, but it was 50% time savings. But I guess if you went through more and more of every aspect of what you do in your job, you might be able to accomplish that. I did it just in a couple of key areas that were severely labor intensive, and I got that to reduce to 40%. And I used that time to then reinvest in my people to actually coach them and teach them the method that I used in order to learn. So that's what I'm sharing with you. So with staff, one of the things about the productivity and creation is I typically saw people taking a lot longer to get their quarterly goals done. And at our company, we had a failure rate that was in the neighborhood of something like 1.70% failure rate, meaning you said you were going to get X done in the next 3 months, by the end of these 3 months, and how many of those goals got accomplished. And then you would see no, most of them didn't get accomplished. And there was lots of reasons for that, which I won't go into. But one of the things that as I sat down and talked to people about why why they weren't able to accomplish it, there was this there was this realization in their way that they were going about it is that a lot of their delays was about a fear of failure. And did they do it right? Was it good enough? And so I realized this is where this technology can help us, which is a high percentage of our staff may have anxiety to try things new or to be innovative or to improve. And we have to remove the anxiety from it that's going to create a sense of failure and a sense of judgment and remove that from the equation. So we can empower them to really say, take a shot at this, use AI to help you get there. And I've seen people start where their first thing out the door is literally, this was completely written by AI. You look at it it looks like this was all AI. Like you put literally no effort into this. And then it begins to evolve as you begin to challenge that, and they realize it's not really in the context of our work, or it didn't consider these things or that things that the AI wouldn't necessarily easily know or figure out. They begin to evolve and they begin to supplement AI with their own thinking work and approach, and they get more sophisticated in their use of it. So the other part here is this, here's this prompt. Now, the descriptors that are in here for what I submitted, this is literally what I submitted to the AI. You're actually seeing a live chat. And you'll see in that first section that's been highlighted, I've gotten to specifics where if I talked about an onboarding process without a date specification, the first time I did this, because I did test it, I got a very complex onboarding process that honestly would take 90 days to 6 months. And I even asked the AI, it's like, hey, this, how long do you think this take? Your onboarding could get completed in 6 months. Well, we averaged 30 days. And so clearly I didn't give it enough direction about how to make an improved process here. So we gave it some time constraints. And then you see on the bottom, I'm always concerned, and you should be as well, about the authentic sources, the original sources that are being used to come up with this information. So in this example, I just picked two: Harvard Business Review, Project Management Institute. Both of those tend to be ones I follow or read, and they could be others. But I didn't want it just to pick things off the public web that could have been any, here's this practitioner and they've got all these blog posts about it. And so, Copilot pulls those and says, oh, here's how you should do this. I wanted to know that this information came from reliable sources. And again, this is something that you teach to your staff. Like, they don't have to be academic researchers to be able to have decent sources. But I do, and this is something you can think about in your own policies, I do tell my staff that I expect them to be able to back up the sources that they have. So if they're learning about something and they just assume that ChatGPT is right, but they never actually linked to the source that ChatGPT gave them and read it, I'm going to hold them accountable for that, right? It's really important that we instill this sense of information being valid, and that it still takes someone to validate that the information in the context was useful, it's good, I scanned it. Yeah, it seemed to all align well. So just mentioning the sources isn't good enough. When you go to coach people, you actually get them to go to look at that. So let's look at this one. This one, I gotta say, as an executive, as a manager, as a researcher, the analysis and evaluation is, so important to what any of us are trying to do. And what I'm getting at is, if you have data, the challenge that we have is having either the expertise, for example, I don't, in terms of statistical analysis, having the expertise to analyze the data, being objective about it, like removing bias, your own personal bias, not necessarily all bias, because that's always a challenge even in AI, but removing your personal bias and being able to be comprehensive around this evaluation process. And from that, to be able to make good decisions. Now, the biggest challenge I've had in my entire career, and I know I'm not alone here, is getting information and that analysis in a timely manner so I can make the right decisions that need to be made when they need to be made. Most of the time, I don't even get the data in a timely manner, let alone the analysis of what that data might indicate, because oftentimes that data is coming to me 30 days late, 60 days late, and that is really difficult to run an organization and keep moving and evolving and serving your customers. So, but it is incredible as you start to learn about how to do the valuation, again, without being an analysis, a quality assurance, a quality data evaluator, without having that expertise, of how much better you can be from a financial management, from from a program delivery, outcomes management, from a fundraising standpoint, much better, much faster, and being able to be much more articulate about what you might be looking at and what it means. So if you look at this example here, what we did was I took, and again, great use of this. This was qualitative data. This was going back to customers and asking them about what experience they expected or wanted or received in the process that we had. And then we took that data and fed it into the generative AI app to then modify, based on that feedback, to go and modify the process, saying, based on this and everything that we've already discussed, what would you change? So this isn't even financial analysis. This is actually qualitative analysis then being brought in, and where we're getting suggestions of how improvements could occur. Because that's, again, in a lot of folks that you hire that are doing their work, they're contributing in a great way, they may be managing a core process. Being able to step back quickly and be like, what innovation or what improvement in what we're doing is kind of makes the most sense. Like, what's going to be cost effective, can be done, is realistic, and so forth. And that's where in this analysis, I find that there's a lot of value learning how to use these tools and contributing some information anonymously, obviously. We're not talking about PHI, private health information or privacy data, private data. We're not talking about HIPAA type regulations. We're going to keep those aside. There are specialized tools for those types of needs, but this is a great way to do that. So let's talk, the last thing is here before we go into some of these apps. We're going to look, for those that attended, we've got some documents and resources that I've created, looking at a white paper on AI impact on productivity, policy guide, and some tips on those AI prompts. So we used to tell you, reach out to us, but what we're now moving to is we're just going to share those with you. We hope that they're useful along with additional information that we can bring to you. But if you are attending this and you're currently a Varsity customer and you want to know more, or you want to know about staff meetings or what we do in training, but of course, chat with your client manager about that. But we're going to go send these resources out for those who attend, and we hope that we're this one way that we give back, since we don't charge for that. And we hope that you get the word out and get others and recommend to others to attend future webinars. Our next one's going to be in September, probably the third week of September. So be on the lookout for that. So with that, I'm going to go share my screen. We're going to go to our browser here first, and give me 1 second. All right. So I'll zoom in a little bit on this one. This is a product called Jasper. And if you're in marketing, if you're a writer, like you have some responsibility to write content within the organization, it could be, you're providing write-ups to a board, and on the finance side, it could be that your marketing person internally has approached you and said, hey, you do some interesting work, you have some interesting ideas, would you ever write a blog article for us? Maybe you're just the person that, I'm the one that produces content for our organization. I'm writing about it. I'm sharing it with our customers. Like if you're in social services, like foster care, you may be communicating information out to foster families. You may be communicating information more targeted towards your connections at the county level. And you want to tell them all the great work that you're doing, like newsletters and your annual your annual reports and so forth that goes out online. So Jasper is a product specifically developed for writers. And you're going to see here in this one, I've got this template right here, which I'm going to open up. And in this template, I actually took an email that came to me that I thought was written quite well. That's what this email is here. I said, using the content below, please review it and tell me you think this is a weak, satisfactory, good, or great email template and content. So that was my thing. And then I dropped in this, it's just a random email, marketing email that came to me. And the reason why I wanted to do the analysis on Jasper was I wanted to see if Jasper could just tell me like what it thinks the quality of this email would be from a marketing perspective. What's the likelihood someone's going to open this and find this information valuable? So Jasper came back with this, and I think this is a really important part of how to use these tools. I didn't just use it to create content. I use this very specific writing tool who understands SEO for websites, I understand blogs, I understands online content versus print content. Like it understands those mediums from a marketing lens. And here it comes down. I just asked it, it says, here's what I think. This email is good, but it's not great. Which I was like, wow, okay. I was impressed by it. And then it goes through and provides guidance on all the things that could be changed on this. So, we all have different strengths. You have really good writers, you have people who write incredibly well, but maybe the way that they focus on marketing, writing for marketing purposes is a little bit different. That's like one of my weaknesses is I like to write, but sometimes I write for knowledge and not necessarily to the chagrin of my marketing team. I don't really write for conversion. That's just how I write. So I need help sometimes, embedding things that could help allow people to go, oh, well, I guess he's offering his services. Yeah, let me go click that and whatever that means, right? So I liked how Jasper does this. So here's a specialized tool where all my content is specific to me. I can create content. So like I can tell it to create the email template. I can tell it who the target audience is. I can go through each of those steps of creating really good marketing content that, let's say if it was for a website page, is online, updated, and optimized. So if you're thinking, oh, we can produce the same content with Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT or Google Gemini, whatever. Yeah, that is true. What I'm telling you is it is more effective. It is more accurate. It is more, I got it right the first time and it's of high quality. in this platform in Jasper that makes this valuable. If you're producing a lot of content, you have a dedicated marketing person, or if you're in advancement and you've got to do a lot of marketing related tasks, Jasper is a great product for that. And there's others out there now that do this, but again, the lens here is the context is this is really good for marketers, right? This is anyone has to do outbound communication of any kind or website. It understands those. Creating a newsletter, template for that. So I really like this one, and I highly recommend that you take a look at one, doing research on these out there, or do a search, do it, use your favorite generative AI tool to go and look at that. But again, this is what I'm talking about, which is it's okay if you've got the experience level to use a generative AI app to do it. I have found that it is not as consistent and fast as doing it here. And as I can just point out to you, here on ChatGPT earlier today, I did a training at early this morning for the East Coast. And in that training, ChatGPT was not working because there had so much demand to put my requests in here. I got this concurrent request meeting. I got this error message that they finally responded to is, what does concurrent requests mean? Because it was not literally not responding. It could not respond. There were so many people hitting ChatGPT. So at that time, the speed at which Jasper was responding was phenomenal, like so much, just so instantaneous. So you get some of those added benefits as well. Now let's look at another product. Now this one I like because unlike Jasper AI, this product called PDF.ai is really easy to use. And I hear, if there's one thing I hear from small organization or nonprofits in general, is I will consistently hear, well, we're tech isn't our strength, right? I hear that over and over again. They meet me, I'm educating them, I'm talking to them, they're thinking about working with us in some capacity. Like, well, for our staff, tech isn't really our strength. And so this ease of use, like how do we make it accessible? And I have to say, some generative AI tools, Copilot and ChatGPT alike, they can be somewhat overwhelming, right? How do I keep track of this? How do I use it? So this one is a specific tool for using with PDF. So you upload PDFs and you can do analysis on it. So let's say you have someone on your staff that needs something, you want to embed AI with them, and you want to make it in a way that's going to be useful, that they can interpret large PDF documents, and that's just part of your process. So this is a very specific task. You already have lots of PDF documents, like let's say the PDFs come from a county office or from some government entity where they're always sending things in PDF. A tool like this could be useful, and I'll show you why. Hopefully, we had a problem in our last training, but let me see if I can show it to you. Let me pull up a document. So here's this document. This is a generic, this is a fictitious organization. I mean, I don't know if there's really a HopeWorks, but this is a fictitious organization. And so I'm going to mark this as a private document. So that means that this document is not part, because I am using the free version, the data is not stored on the server, and I'm going to upload it right now. So now that I've uploaded this document, I can actually ask it some questions. And so this document happens to be a financial balance sheet. I'm going to ask it, analyze this see if we can get this one to respond today. There you go. So here it is in really quick. Again, as in terms of financial management skills, let's say I have none. And so I need to learn about how to interpret a document like this. And I'm looking at it. And, to a lot of people, these things just look like numbers, like tons and tons of numbers. Like, what do they mean? Like, I understand the number and that's high and that's low, negative and positive, but like, what does it mean? Like, how do you analyze it? And here I've used PDF to do that. I didn't have to worry about, is it being uploaded into ChatGPT? I don't have to worry about managing that, whether our financial documents getting there. And in this one in particular, I would probably say in any platform, I would use fictitious information. So maybe some of the data is real, but like there's no mention of your company name anywhere. I think that's important, even for small organizations. So you want to be careful about what's being shared. But again, in trying to understand what to look for, if I was actually teaching someone how to review a financial document, I might bring this up and say, well, let's look at some of the things it picked up on. Let's go look at the document and compare its analysis, understand why is this thing? Like, where is it where we say the, like, the operating margin, whatever, X, Y, and Z? I might use that tool for them to go, oh, okay, like this all this information and knowledge experience doesn't require someone with 30 years experience. Like now I'm mentoring somebody and coaching them on how to understand this information in real time with the feedback that we've given. So PDF.ai, I think this is probably the simplest AI tool I have ever seen at this point. And it's still generative AI, but I think again, its sole focus being around PDFs. I think about folks I've met over the years that like their role, their specific tasks are very PDF heavy. And I think that this type of tool can be really useful in looking at lots of PDF content and summarizing PDF content, pulling data out of PDF content, analyzing that content can be a really good use. So that's the PDF.ai one. Now I want to move to a different product here. Just give me a second. We're going to switch to, oops, we are going to switch to another product. Just bringing that up now. Okay. So some of you might be, maybe you've heard about it, maybe you've got friends or family members that use it. This is called Canva. And Canva is your kind of a very accessible um, uh, publishing application. So you can create things for print, for online. You can design newsletters. You can design email templates. And Canva integrates with other products that are out there, even other AI products, which is kind of neat. So I have Canva attached to one of the other AI tools that I use. So I can integrate the two together. So Canva, if you already have access to this, you actually have Canva access to Canva's AI. Now, Canva's AI is right now is really about AI content creation using AI. It's not yet as much about automation. And so when you want to look for that, one of those tools is right down here. Now, this icon, I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me zoom in. It's not going in. On the left, down, way bottom left is what we're looking at. There is these stars. This is starting to become a ubiquitous icon out there where a lot of organizations are identifying their AI feature that's embedded in an existing app using this one. So in this one, I'm going to use a tool called Magic Write. So Magic Write pops up, and it's actually Magic Write is showing this field where you can ask it to type to write up something, a piece of content. So we're going to take a look at that right now. Write up an email. Well, so there it is. I just wrote that up really quickly. You know, I'm going to hit this generate button. So this is going to generate my content, whatever that is. There's the subject line, there's the whatever. And then you're going to see when this is done, it's going to give you this insert button. It gives you the copy and paste, but I can just hit insert. And this is what it does. It just takes that content and drops it in. Now, the reason why I actually like this is I think Canva is used by a lot of organizations. Maybe it's just one person. And that person might want to subscribe to a paid version of ChatGPT or Copilot. And if you're on a paid version of Canva, and this is the lowest, I think this is the lowest tier for a team. This is the lowest tier. If you're on Canva, what you can do is get access to this without subscribing and spending any more money on any other products. Because although I might not find this as powerful as ChatGPT or Copilot at this point, if you're just entering into using these tools like in Canva and you see that it has an AI feature, and again, that's what most apps out there now, almost all apps, in order to stay competitive, they're adding this type of AI capability, like an embedded AI assistant, either for getting tech support, how to do things, or actually doing, performing certain tasks. And then you can take that and embed the content. So you can teach them in a tool that they already know. This is why this becomes very easy. It's in their content. It is Canva. It's not as good as Jasper, but it clearly can help produce things or review things and make the content better or allow them to produce the content faster, saving them time. Now, maybe you as a manager are saying, hey, I want to review it and we need to make it sound more like us. It's not in the right voice, whatever. And you can play with that AI technology. But there's no question that this is just very easy for people to adopt if you're already a Canva user. So again, product I like a lot. I think it's a great tool, lots of templates, lots of content that you can embed. And now this AI just helps roll things even a little bit faster in terms of producing content that might be better than some people are in terms of writers. They're just not great writers. They're great marketers, but they're maybe not great writers. This helps them get a jump start on that. So the last thing I'm going to show you today, just give me a second. We're going to share this window. Okay. So this is Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is if you're on a paid subscription of Microsoft 365, you're going to have access to this product as a general generative AI tool. Now, again, we usually talk about in this session about like some specific apps and how they get used, and there's lots more out there I haven't covered. For example, if your organization uses QuickBooks Online, if you're paying for various versions, they have certain AI agents embedded in the product where you don't ask it things. It just analyzes your financials and gives you indicators like on payroll, on payment processing, so forth. And they have one on forecasting called the Finance Agent, which comes in a more premium version. So even products like that, like on the financial side, have embedded AI tools. But let's say you're in a situation where you're heavily invested in some applications, some business applications in your organization that you can't easily replace. I see this a lot in fundraising, sometimes finance, right? Where, well, I'm on this financial product. They talk about an AI tool, but it's not very good. I can't use it for any type of analysis yet. So they've done it, but it's really more of a marketing thing versus a really valuable tool to me. So in that case, you might say, for that reason, I need a different AI tool just so I can do my financial analysis, right? Because it's not my product, or it's not part of our fundraising software that we use. So I need an AI tool to assist me in looking at my data, analyzing my data. Now that's where I think a Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, an Anthropic Claude, if you know of that product, and then ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT. I think any of those could do a good job at this point. They're all very, very competitive from the standpoint of what they do. But that being said, if you're Microsoft house, you probably have this feature included. If you're on a paid subscription to Google Workspace, you probably get access to Gemini now, and whether you know it or not. And the reason what you want to look for is this little green checkbox in the top right-hand corner. So again, if you're doing that process, remember we started with the process analysis. If you're looking at process and a task and you're trying to improve something, let's say in finance, you're like, there's no AI feature here. You're probably either going to initially invest in a generative tool like this, where you can upload data and do it securely, where it's not being shared, or you're going to go out to market and look at some of the paid versions of financial analytics AI tools that you can use to do more of that work for you. So I just want to bring this to surface again. Last thing I'd want anyone to do is go spend money trying things and getting caught into a one-year contract. Just so you know, that's one of the things I do first is, can I use this technology and subscribe month to month first? It's just one of my criteria. So if you're worried about creep of costs, only subscribe to things that allow you to do it on a month-to-month basis, which now Microsoft does. ChatGPT always has done it. Gemini does. Anthropic does. Anyone who requires you to take a 1 year, this is not the time to make that kind of investment. You want to be able to prove that it works for your organization, and do that with a month-to-month contract. And then when it becomes essential, if you can find some cost savings, great. Because I always like to try it for 30, 60, 90, make sure it actually gets used heavily. Otherwise, I shut it off and like, hey, we'll come back and try it again later. Jasper AI, for example, I didn't use it. I was testing with someone else, and then I became a paid user. And that's something I use regularly to review other people's content, to review things that get posted for us, as well as to help me with my own writing. To like look at, improve my own writing and some of the mistakes I normally make in when I write content. So I appreciate everyone that's attended here. We're kind of wrapped up and talking about some of these tools. I hopefully the context that we've placed and the structure that we've placed into getting into these tools and how you might apply some of them is useful to you. Of course, if you've got feedback for me, you can always contact me. I know many of you have been in contact with Madeline when she sends out those notices. We would love your feedback if you're like, hey, are you ever going to cover this technology? Are you ever going to cover this tool, this AI tool? We'd love to hear from you. And again, be on the lookouts for our next webinar, which will be next month in September. And please, you'd be doing me a great favor if you would just forward that registration link to others and to share your feedback and invite them to attend that event. With that, you guys have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.